It is actually item 12C, which is a resolution approving the classification and compensation plan policy guidelines. This is, again, a discussion only, no action to be taken by the board. So we invite Ms. Doris Patterson up and Mr. Harold Cooper up for the presentation.
Good morning again, Board.
Good morning.
The next item is a discussion-only item, as Chair Wood said, of resolution to approve and adopt the Henry County Employee Classification and Compensation Policy. And we had spoken over the last year about what we can do to recruit and retain competent workforce that wants to stay with us, and also how we can be competitive with our surrounding market. And so what we've done is, and I've asked Mr. Harold Cooper to assist me in going through the policy guidelines, is to come up with some policy guidelines in order to administer and maintain the county's class and comp plan. This is a policy that the county has not had before, so we're very proud to present this to you. In your package, you should have a copy of a document that says Classification and Compensation Policy Guidelines. And we're not going to go over the entire packet, but I do want to point to page 2, which is the contents page. And in the document, you'll see the philosophy, the plan administration, maintenance of the plan, provisions for plan administration, implementation of salary adjustments and changes, implementation of other discretionary progressive practices, definitions, and then the appendix. This document has been reviewed with our county leadership team, and we have also sent it to our county attorney for review as well. So I'm going to ask Mr. Cooper to skip over, if he would please, to part 4 of this document, and just to talk a little bit through the implementation.
Good morning, Madam Board Chair, distinguished board members. Implementation of salary adjustment and changes. There's 4 ways in which this could occur. The simplest way is promotional increases through competitive promotions. And that simply suggests that an employee who has been with us and who's completed their 1-year probationary period with us can apply for a position in which they deem they're qualified for, and the competitive process, the recruitment process, which it entails, that employee could be selected for an interview and then selected for the position. That's one way an employee could be promoted and receive a promotional increase in that regard. A second way is through increases for administrative or progressive promotions. This is more associated with career ladders. Let's say we have a job classification of equipment operator 1, and I'm the equipment operator 1, and I'm ready to ascend to an equipment operator 2. Then if my supervisor feels that I've met my role and satisfied the logistics of my role as an EO1 in an exemplary fashion, I could then matriculate to an EO2 with approval granted by HR as well as budget. HR from only the standpoint of, is that position available? And budget from the standpoint of, is it economically feasible for us as a county? Section 3, demotion and position downgrades, are in regards to those employees who may receive a voluntary or involuntary demotion, and their position status has been downgraded. Typically, when someone is subjected to a demotion, that demotion is in conjunction with a 3% decrease in salary at a minimum. And then lastly, temporary salary adjustments for acting in interim roles are associated with those employees who may be placed in an acting or interim role where they're doing 50% or more of the work associated with the higher level grade, and they're eligible for an increase, and typically that increase is 10% to 10% of the new minimum of that salary of that job range, or 5%, whichever one is greater. So these are the common ways in which salary adjustment and change could occur, and this is in conjunction with our class and comp study, in which you're about to hear more about shortly.
The other part of the document that you have in front of you, which we're not going to go over in detail because we'll be discussing it in the next item, but that is how we maintain it, how we make offers to new hires, how we classify new positions, how we handle requests for reclassification of existing positions. And then the last part on page 7 is the implementation of other discretionary progressive practices. And in the different meetings that we've been over the last several months, you all have expressed a desire to do some more innovative practices within the county as it relates to classification and compensation. So you'll see the list there includes flexible work and break schedules, merit-based pay, cost of living adjustments, premium pay for education or certifications, and also shift differentials and other pay incentives. So by approving this document at the time that it does come before you for a vote, this gives the county manager the authorization to incorporate some of those progressive practices within our work environment. And that's it for discussion today. Do you have any questions?
Okay, we've heard the presentation, and again, this is really the discussion part about the policy, the classification and compensation plan policy, and then we're going to have another discussion in a few seconds regarding the adoption of the classification and compensation structure. So at this time, are there any questions from the board regarding the policies that was just presented to us? Okay, well, we're ready to move into the second discussion item regarding the adoption of the classification and compensation structure. And again, this is a discussion only as well. So again, feel free to move forward with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wood. One of the things that we haven't said today, but I think we all acknowledge, is how important our employees are to the success of our county government operation. Without our employees, we could not provide the services that we provide on a daily basis to the citizens of Henry County. And one of the things that we need to keep in mind is we really want to have measures in place that will allow us to recruit and retain employees that make the services work for this county. So with that in mind, we undertook this project over a year ago. And again, I want to say thank you to the board for even authorizing us to undertake this project so that we could contract a class and comp consultant, and we contracted the Archer Company to do this for us, to utilize a market-based approach and look at some of our competitors, and also to study our in-house classifications and compensation and structures to come up with a framework for the administration of a class and comp plan within the county. So at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce our consultant, Ms. Mary Ann Oyas, who's here from the Archer Company, to come to the podium. And while she's coming, I want to just acknowledge Mary Ann has come in. This is, if this were a football game, I'd say it's the fourth quarter and we have 2 minutes left in the game. Unfortunately, the consultant that we started this project with about a year ago passed away in September, Mr. Chip King. So I do want to at least acknowledge him and keep his family in our prayers as well, his wife and their 4 children. But Mary Ann has come in along with Mr. Jim Battaglia, who is, Mr. Jim Battaglia is the regional director for Archer, and Mary Ann Oyas is the regional manager for Archer. And so they've come in to assist us to get this project to conclusion. So what I'd like to do is ask her to just take a few minutes to go over the presentation to kind of summarize the intent of the project and the scope and the actions taken so far. Mary Ann?
Express our deepest sympathy in the transition of Mr. King. Thank you for working with our team as well. And again, just want the whole Archer family to know that you all have been in our thoughts as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure, my brain works better that way. Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Board, and thank you again for your condolences. It's my pleasure to be here in front of you. I heard a comment earlier about the comp and class plan being dragged out, or there's been some issues, and I'm really hoping through this discussion and presentation we can get to your concerns. A lot of work has been done, and it's been great to be part of it. Just to kind of summarize, the scope of the study really covered, 1,700 employees on any given day that were currently in almost 520 job titles. So that was the scope. The mission was to come in and do a number of items that would allow us to present to the county a competitive and equitable pay plan. To do that early, there was planning, strategy, and assessment meetings for us to understand the county, its operations, its budget, its structure, who does what, who reports to whom, and so forth. From that point, we started a major aspect of work, which is job analysis and evaluation. I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's essentially understanding what folks do and what's the difficulty, the responsibility, and so forth. Position analysis questionnaires are substantial documents completed by county employees and reviewed by at least one level of management. So we have documentation about what people do, their responsibilities, and so forth. In addition, the Archer team, including Chip, Jim, and myself, have been working with Georgia counties and jurisdictions all over the nation for combined over 100 years, I think, which says something about our age. But the good thing about that is we have a good general understanding of how county government works, but every county, every employer has its unique characteristics. Market analysis, I'll talk more about that, but essentially it's understanding what is the labor market with whom you compete to hire and retain good employees. Developing a pay plan, again, the compensation grade, structure, and ranges for equity and appropriate pay given your financial limitations, which every employer has. And then to recommend and facilitate how we implement a large plan in a large organization, and then over time, how you maintain and the plan and how we can support you and teach you how to do it so that pay remains equitable, fair, and responsible over time. And again, the bottom line is that the resulting pay plan will be fair. We'll talk about what equity means, equitable and competitive in the future, to allow you, once again, to be able to find, hire, retain, motivate great employees for the county organization. Really, there's two questions in a comp and class plan. Are the different positions in the county properly categorized and then ranked from top to bottom or bottom to top into a pay grade and range based on the responsibilities and the duties of a job? Every job has a different type and level of responsibilities. That's a question, is will the resulting pay grades and ranges reflect the differences between the jobs? That's internal equity within an organization, but equally as important are the pay ranges for each class or job title competitive in the market. A good comp and class study has to be able to ask and answer both questions. Let's talk a little bit more about internal equity, the process of understanding and evaluating positions. Our focus on evaluation of positions is the content of the job, not the person in it, not their age, race, sex, anything personal about them, but what is it that they're required to do. The job content then allows us to determine what we call the relative worth of each job, assessed and place it in a hierarchy. There are jobs that are relatively simple. There are jobs that are quite complex for a number of reasons, and our methodology allows us to make those determinations in a very job-oriented, not a personal way. From that, we can determine the appropriate classification and pay structure for the county. The result of all of this work is up-to-date classifications or job titles and placement into pay grades based on the duties, responsibilities of the jobs relative to each other. One of the outcomes of the study was a reduction in the number of job titles or classifications, a substantial reduction. This is always sensitive. One thing I've learned over the 35 years I've been in this field is that people take their job titles very seriously, in some cases as much or more than their pay. So we're sensitive to that, but we have to balance that against sort of what's a reasonable number of job titles for any organization. So we really think a lot about that when we do that. A little bit about internal equity in the Archer job evaluation system. The system that we use does allow us an objective way, as I said, to take a look at the relative difficulty, complexity, responsibilities of any job, or in this case, many, many jobs within the organization. As I said before, one of the legal requirements as well as moral requirements in any pay study is to make sure that we're making distinctions based only on the content of the job as opposed to any personal characteristics. Let's talk a little bit about the market analysis. We chose 69 what we call benchmark, and these are titles, these are job titles within the county structure that we can go out into organizations with whom you compete for your labor, for your talent, and come back and say to you, relative to these other organizations, here's how your pay sort of stacks up. That's called market or benchmark analysis. Now the jobs we picked, there are certain characteristics they have to meet. You want to make sure that the job titles are widely used in the labor market as opposed to really unique jobs that maybe only you have. And the titles are common, the responsibilities are fairly common. If we are to look at job descriptions in these other counties and cities, they would be really similar. That the positions themselves cover a large percentage of the employee group here and all pay levels. So we want to benchmark some of the lower paid to the highest paid and all along that spectrum in the market analysis, and that we're covering the depth and breadth of a very wide organization that is county functions. Many kinds of folks with many sorts of skills and attributes. Data was compiled from 16 what we call peer organizations. These are your immediate neighbors in terms of cities and counties, sort of the south side of Metro Atlanta. They're peer in the sense, again, of being similar in function, or at least many of the jobs have a high degree of similarity. They're tied to the influence of the urban center of Atlanta to the extent that Atlanta and that little circle has some influence as we go out from the city center, but we did not include the city of Atlanta and say that county in the metro analysis because it's simply not directly comparable from a standpoint of ability to compete and pay. We also looked at supplemental pay data that we could get from the state, as well as Economic Research Institute, which is a private survey house that does very good data collection on pay. So in terms of the comparable counties and cities, this is the list, and of course these are all familiar to you. 2 of the cities, as I understand it, are in your county, and then the others in adjoining counties. So again, really when you're looking at who's your market, it's, really who do you compete with for your employees? Where do you tend to hire people from? Who do you sort of tend to lose people to? That's how we come up with the market. And I believe that these were discussed with, if not you, county management, several months ago. The methodology is once you have done job evaluation and understand the internal ranking of the jobs in the market analysis, is you bring those 2 sources of data together in a way that balances the internal comparisons and market competitiveness. But that's math, and that's sort of analysis and math. What's really key is the second part, is that as we fashioned the compensation plan, working with the management team, was to take a look at elements of what we call comp or pay philosophy. That is, who's the market? We talked about that. And then where do you want to place yourself in the market? Most public jurisdictions that we work with decide to pay sort of at market, not substantially above, not substantially below. We call that at market. That's the philosophy that we're recommending here. The grade structure, how many pay grades do you want? That's one of the discussion items that has implications on the administration of the plan. It's sort of what's reasonable and what's fair. And then the pay range structure. So that's things such as how wide should that range be? Where should new employees be paid relative to more seasoned employees? And on the other end, how far above market is the county willing to pay over time for really good performance? These are really important questions that we spent considerable time with the county in discussing to come up with recommendations, and then finally, how do you implement? You can't do a compensation presentation without at least one graph, so I'll go through this really quickly, but I always like this graph because it puts pictures worth 10,000 words into a picture what I've been trying to describe. And that is, if you look along the bottom axis, that's job evaluation points. So we've got jobs in the county at about 200 and some points up to about 1,500. The points again, relative difficulty and complexity and responsibility of the job. Then on the vertical axis going up and down is market pay. The line sort of cuts through all that and says, so what's the best relationship? So why is this line important? What it shows us is that the job evaluation points do a good job of predicting what the market pays. There's a tight relationship. What's nice about that is we can say to you that our job evaluation system results will give you pay ranges that are very close to the worth of the jobs in the market. That's kind of the statistical underpinning of the methodology. Oh, going the wrong way. Okay, so as I mentioned before, what we're providing to you in terms of deliverables, things you can use, are up-to-date classifications. We are right now working on what are called classification specifications, which is sort of another name for job descriptions. But employees will be able to see for every job title what the requirements are, education and experience, what the major duties are, and what are the major abilities, knowledge areas a person has to have to do the job. It'll be very crisp and clean. We're writing those now. Every job will be placed into a pay grade, again, based on those job content items, which are so important to saying this job should be paid more or less than this job. New pay ranges, a plan that reflects your desired level of competitiveness in the market, which is to pay competitive with the market, a plan that can be fairly easily managed and maintained over time. And we will be training the county HR staff how to do that. And then some salary increases, well, actually for many employees who currently are paid below what we've determined to be a reasonable minimum pay rate for any given job. So in terms of review of the next steps would be at the appropriate time to actually formally adopt the plan. I do want to mention that one of the things that often happens is an employee will look at the results and say, I think these Archer folks just missed the boat on my job, and maybe they've put it in a grade 12, and I think it's a 14. Well, Archer, we've been doing this a long time, but occasionally we miss something, or perhaps the questionnaire wasn't filled out accurately, or maybe the job's changed a little bit. So an appeals process is very important, and that will be done to pick up and analyze any jobs where there's a legitimate cause to think there may have been a misgrade, that the job has been graded incorrectly. So that will happen. In terms of implementation, immediately doesn't mean today, but there's a number of administration things that need to happen, but as soon as administratively feasible or possible, to fund the salary increases to make sure every employee is paid at least at the minimum of their new assigned range. And even at the minimum, their salary is still 15-20% below the market average, but at least they're getting there, and there will be a way for them to move through the range reasonably over time. And then a phased-in approach, a couple fiscal years, to then say, based on the longevity of the employee and making sure that we minimize compression. Where should employees be placed in those new ranges? And what we mean by compression here primarily is that I think we would all say it's probably not fair that a brand new employee be paid the same as an employee who's been here 5, 10 or more years. So the implementation, there's a process to factor in longevity. Future steps, as I mentioned, would be the appeals process, just to look at was the position misgraded. These new class specs or job descriptions available within 90 days, and then on ongoing maintenance, structure and process in-house. And you're not going to be needing to be tied to Archer Company, although we're always around to help, so you can maintain it as jobs change over time. Okay, so that is the presentation. And thank you.
Don't leave, stay up here.
Okay.
Commissioners, the last part of the information that you have in front of you, you should see a report from the Archer Company, which says final report of a classification and compensation study for Henry County, Georgia. Basically, the information that Mary Ann has just shared in the PowerPoint is included in that report. Behind that, you'll see several exhibits. The first exhibit is the market analysis. This is the summary of the benchmark jobs that Mary Ann also mentioned. The next exhibit is the pay schedule, which outlines the grades, points, and pay ranges for each classification, starting at grade 1, going to grade 34. The blue are the entry to mid-level positions. The green are the mid-level and management positions, and then the peach color at the bottom will be the leadership positions. The next is the grade order classification list. So that just shows by grade which clusters of jobs are included in each grade level. And then the last is the alphabetical order of jobs. And that, where you can go and look alphabetically for a particular job and see what grade level it actually falls into. So the resolution that we will be bringing forward to you at our next meeting, or at the next meeting that is called for this item, will be for the county to approve and adopt the plan, which includes the class structure by grade, the position structure by title, the pay schedule by grade, and the department installation schedule. Also, the employees will be hired into positions at no less than the entry salary for the designated grade. Also, we're asking the board to approve the designated option to place incumbents into the new pay ranges to minimize salary compression. As Mary Ann mentioned, we also will have a period where appeals will be allowed for employees who desire to appeal their actual grade classification, and then that the structure will be reviewed a minimum of every 3 years. And that is it.
Okay, well, we've heard the presentation, and this is discussion, and so I see now Commissioner Holmes will begin with you, but this is the time for the board to address any questions or comments. Okay, Commissioner Holmes.
Sorry about that, Chair. I just have one question. What percentage of employees will be getting increases in this study?
Up to the minimum, we were about 34% last count that I saw.
Okay.
For the minimum only, and then the implementation plan beyond the minimum would address longevity, and that would take that up to a higher number.
And that number would be what?
I'm going to defer to the county manager.
Because this has fluctuated. I mean, I've been told 40%, 60%, 95%. Now we're down to 30%. So we're just trying to understand how we're going to take care of our employees moving forward.
So to answer your question, Commissioner Holmes, it would be about 90%. The 35% number that Doris referenced was just for those employees who are currently not at the minimum for the pay grade.
Other questions from the board? Commissioner Barham?
Doris, I want to commend you for moving this project forward. It's been something we've been wanting to do for quite some time, and to plug everybody in where they need to be, and I particularly like the longevity part, so that eliminates the compression that we would have. I do have one question, though. I know we looked at 1,164 positions, and we've got a total of 1,600 employees. And I guess my question is, I reached out to the county extension office, and I think most of their employees are on our pay. Is that right? We've got 3 employees that are not on our pay. Is that right?
The employees that were included in this process were not supplemental employees, so we do have supplemental employees in several different departments. If their pay is supplemented by another agency, then they were not included. These were, and that was a part of the plan from the beginning. But this was regular employees who were paid by the county only.
It's my understanding that they filled out the paperwork that y'all asked to fill, for all employees to fill out, and then at the last minute, they were told that they wouldn't be included.
We actually had several employees that turned in the position analysis questionnaires. Those were sent out countywide, but the instructions were for employees who, regular employees, not temporary, not seasonal. There's a whole list, but that was included in the instructions.
Like 3 employees that were affected that hadn't had a raise in 3 years.
I believe the county manager wants to respond.
Commissioner Barham, we have several supplemental employees that are in the county, not just for extension services. At a number of our courts, we have supplemental employees that we do provide a supplement to their salaries that they're receiving. For extension services, I can tell you for the last 3 years, when we've done the across-the-board increases, the resolution that was approved by the board specified that it was only for county employees and did not include supplemental employees. This is certainly different because we're not doing the across-the-board. This was our class and compensation study, but I will be more than happy to provide to the board a list of all of the supplemental positions, because if we look at the supplemental positions, then that number in terms of what we've discussed over the last couple of months will certainly go up. One thing that's important to recognize is a number of the supplemental employees, while their amount that they're receiving from the county may be much less than that of an employee that's full-time here, they are receiving other funds from other agencies. And for example, the extension services, those are actually state employees. And so those employees are receiving a state salary, and they're also receiving the benefits of being a state employee. And so there may be times that the state will give increases to all of their state employees in which our county employees don't benefit from that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Do we have a longevity? How's that going to work?
Commissioners, good morning. The longevity increase is going to be the same methodology as before that we have talked about. We're taking the minimum aspect for each job description, each position, which gets everybody to the minimum, and then you put 1% per year on a 35-year chart. The breakdown before, we'll have that ready for the next meeting, but the breakdown is before is going back with department heads. We've done in the last 2 weeks, meet with each department head. We have a couple more to get to go through and say, no, this right here is incorrect. This person should be right here for what their job title and job duties are. So we are in the process now of going back and finalizing the up and over chart, just like we did in public safety 3 years ago. Same methodology to keep everybody from being compressed down together.
Cap, I mean, you said 35 years.
As soon as we get through all the departments and make sure we got the right numbers, we'll have that hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay.
But we'll make sure we stay within our budgetary figure.
Other questions? Commissioner Barham?
Brad, when we had our one-on-ones or two-on-ones or whatever they were, you described to me that we was doing the base salary, then we was doing years of service of 1% all the way through,
yes, sir,
up to 35%. Is that not right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. As long as we get through our financial restraints, and then we can afford that. However, some of them, due to the study, there might be some caps, but we'll make sure our 90% plus If you're paid over that, you'll be frozen in your square, or you will not receive. However, with that longevity, we need to separate. Getting everybody to the minimum will cause a compression, so we need to have that second wheel. And we feel we can do that, working with our department heads and our staff to get that done.
Sounds good.
We'll make sure again, our first meeting we had, it was definitely 2 weeks ago. Our first 3-on-3 was kind of I'd say a train wreck, getting out information there and trying to rush the process, and we have slowed the process because we want to make sure it's right. This is important.
All right, Commissioner Wilson and I have comments too.
How do we keep this program forward? What's the plan for next year?
First, get through this part. Next year, definitely, now we have something we can budget. If we do 1% longevity increases, now we have a budgetary figure. And then we'll look at phase 2. Do we have supplemental pay? Do we have enhancements to our program? But more importantly, look at the policy where we do go back and look at market values. We're very good, even in the public safety 3 years ago, is getting the market value there and then leaving it alone. We need to have a mechanism to make sure we go in and check the market. Even in the metro area, some of the salaries right now, even with the recent market, our surrounding areas have come out and made some adjustments in the last few months that is significant, that we must look at to maintain the excellent personnel we have on staff now.
Other questions or comments before my comment? Well, this is all about services to our citizens. That's where I want to start. And our people, our employees, are the ones that provide the services to our citizens. As we've already heard, the whole purpose of us going through this, definitely to focus on the service to our citizens, but this is to retain and recruit good quality employees. This county is growing and has grown at a very fast rate. And so I appreciate the hard work that I see a lot of our employees that are putting towards making sure that we can respond to requests, respond to litter pickup, respond to making sure that we've got a great public safety community and safe community, all the way to the point that we're having to even think proactively. What this classification study does, in my opinion, is help us to come out of the dark ages into the 21st century, because I'll tell you, workforce and quality workforce is a major challenge, not just for county government, but for almost every industry. We want good people to provide great services, and guess what? We've got to begin thinking about where we're going by 2040, which we already know that we're the second fastest growing metro county right now. What this is really, in my opinion, is going to be one of the most important things that this board will do and can do to help provide a great quality workforce for the county, to make sure that the services are provided. And I will tell you, part of what needs to happen is, in addition to the future next steps, yes, we need to look at longevity, but we need to also include the concept of performance review. There are some employees here that are working hard, and I know that they're working hard. So we've got to begin to acknowledge and recognize the value of those that are here, and then those who are not pulling their fair share, those who are not working together to help us prepare for the future. Well, we need to think about alternatives for them, because that's what performance does. It is to recognize and to reward according to the team, the things that you bring to the team. So again, I'm looking forward to next steps. I'm glad that we're not rushing this. I know employees may be very anxious to hear about how this will definitely be implemented. I will tell you that it's probably not going to be a perfect plan because, again, I'm glad to hear about the appeals process. There's going to be somebody who's not going to be happy, but at least this moves this into the next direction. I would also say that it's going to be a multi-year experience. At least to bring people up to the minimum salary, that's important. Again, to make sure that we've got market salaries, that's important, because we have, over the past, since the time I know I've been in this elected role, have lost some really good talent. Some of it's been due to pay, but the other part is making sure that we're not overworking, and then part of it is about leadership as well. So we've got to put all of that together to make sure that we are addressing some priorities, and that's what the board has got to do as well. These are policies that we're addressing, but we've got to identify some priorities that is going to help move us into the 21st century, because there are some things that we need to do continuously here in this county, and a part of it is going to be dealing with the morale, the commitment, and the talent and the skills that our employees are going to bring to the table. So again, I want to commend all of those who've been working very hard. Want to, again, say, let's helpfully bring this to some type of conclusion, or at least the first step to the next step. But this is very important, and I'm glad we're getting closer. I'm glad we're having discussions about it. And so again, there were probably other questions from the board after this time. So are there any other comments from the board? We want to say thank you, and again, we appreciate the Archer Company, and again, your thoughts are with us as well, but thank you for the work that you've helped us to bring us this far as well. Thank you all, whole team. Okay, now we will move into our next item, which is a SPLOST resolution approving a budget amendment and bid award for the construction of South Cleveland Church Road, which is a SPLOST 4 dirt road in District 2. And we welcome Mr. Rocky Romero up for that presentation.
Good morning, Chair and board members.
Good morning.
As you stated, Madam Chair, this is a SPLOST 4 project, South Cleveland Church Road, which is a District 2 SPLOST 4 dirt road improvement project. Seal bids were solicited through the purchasing department, and we received 11 seal bids, and they were reviewed. And the lowest bid came from Georgia Asphalt, Inc. in the amount of $1,016,987.44. We also need a budget amendment in the amount of $480,000 for the construction and utility relocation. Staff is recommending the use of the District 2 projects as listed in the resolution of projects that have been completed or have not been there's one that is not active. So staff recommends the budget amendment and also the approval of the low bidder, Georgia Asphalt, for this project. I would take any questions at this time.
You've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, I would like to make a comment. I'm definitely in favor of paving our dirt roads here in Henry County. It's hard to believe that we're still here in 2018 with dirt roads here in our county. One of the things, and I wish Commissioner Clemens was actually here because I definitely wanted to speak with her, but we're going to let her recover. But one concern that I do have is that we're pulling money from a major corridor that has been noted as a major concern from our citizens, and that's that Highway 155. And I will tell you that anything that's going to be coming from West Village Parkway or Jonesboro Road, Highway 155, Highway 2342, Rock Quarry Road, all of the major corridors, I'm very concerned because part of what I'm hearing, especially through the Georgia Department of Transportation and the Atlanta Region Commission, is that in order for us to move some of these major corridors that we have already in long-range plans and short-range plans, we're going to have local funding to help address those and to even, I think of ways of what we can do locally, even through right-of-way, maybe engineering and all of those things. So that's the concern that I have. I'm definitely in favor of supporting the pavement of dirt roads. This particular one, even though it's inactive, and I understand that it's inactive, and that's because it is so far out. And I can hear Commissioner Clemens right now, is that we've got things that we need to do right now. This is so far out. We don't know when we're going to see it move, but again, we've got to begin to identify some priorities. And I know I've been listening to this Board of Commissioners on things that are dear to their heart in every district. And if we move money away from it, it's going to send a message, and then it may potentially have a negative impact. But we've got to figure out how we fund some of these major projects to move them and accelerate them more into the future to help us address our traffic concerns. So I'll let you respond to that.
Yes, Madam Chair, and that was the reason that in SPLOST 4, we put this project, State Route 155, for design only from I-75 to Bill Garner. About 2 years ago, a delegation from the county went to GDOT, and they met with Jay Roberts, Mr. Jay Roberts, which is the GDOT planner. And at that time, there was, in addition to this project, there were other projects that were brought to their attention to GDOT. One of them, you just mentioned, the Western Corridor, which was one of that GDOT said they were going to do completely. This was another project that GDOT stated that they were going to be doing entirely. So since GDOT is going to fund the entire project, that's why staff doesn't see a need to have this money sitting there, since GDOT is going to be doing the project by themselves. There was a number back 2 years ago, about $72 million that GDOT was going to put into this project. And like you said, when is it going to happen? You know, they gave us a year, that some years, you know, in the future. It's not going to be currently nothing active right now. But we cannot, one of the things that we did in SPLOST 4, and we actually, 3 districts here, State Route 81 and also Rock Quarry Road, we put money for the design just to entice, put our 20% match, and we receive funds for those projects. But on State Route 155, we cannot start the project because it's a GDOT project. If we do any design without GDOT approval, we'll be wasting our time and money. So since Mr. Roberts said that GDOT was going to take care of this project, that's why staff recommends moving forward. Now, if things changes, there's still going to be money available, roughly about $1.5 million out of the 1.8. So there's still, we're not taking all of it, but there's still going to be funding if GDOT changes their mind. But as far as I know, they're going to be doing the entire project.
Thank you for responding to mine. Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
Yes, Rocky, I agree with Chad to a certain degree, but after hearing what you had to say about it, this is another way where we can complete one of those projects on the SPLOST list. And the Bill Gardner, is that the thing that they were going to give us $72 million?
That's correct.
The state, so we got that money coming,
yes,
and they're going to fund that project completely.
That's my understanding.
So
that
it
the
makes
state is
sense to move this money and go ahead and get another project that we committed on the
Correct.
SPLOST 4 to get done.
That's correct.
And, well, you answered my question.
Okay, Commissioner Holmes.
As a board member, we all serve districts in this county, and each of us, we know what the constituents want in each of our districts. So I will ask that the board, and I've said this before, respect with other commissioners the decisions they make in their districts. If their constituents are unhappy with those decisions, they will vote them out and put somebody else in the seat. But we have to respect each other's districts. So if Commissioner Clemens wants to make a decision to do something for our constituents, we should respect that. And I mean, that's just how it should be. That's how this works, and that's how we should continue to move forward.
I would like to respond to that. First of all, I agree that we need to respect each district and the district commissioner. But I also say that at the end of the day, it takes the majority of the board, and we should have the right to ask questions and to make recommendations and to question. And so I just encourage us to, I don't know what has happened in the past, but we cannot continue to just only think district. We've got to think countywide, and yes, we do need to respect the district commissioners. Based on the feedback that Mr. Rocky Romero has given me, I think he answered my question. He helped me to think again. Again, if I was going to vote against it, which I'm not planning to, I would have had made the motion to table it so that I can respect Commissioner Clemens, as I normally respect every district commissioner, and I will continue to respect each district commissioner if I go against something that they recommend. So again, I had the question, I wanted the question answered, and I again appreciate the opportunity to respond to that. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
If there was any questions with regards to this project, I think it should have been taken off, given the fact that Commissioner Clemens wasn't, going to be in attendance for this meeting. And I think it's bad form for any of us to try to strike down a project that somebody wants to do, and they put it on the agenda when they know they're not going to be here, and then the board votes against it. So I just say let's try to respect each other's district. Let's try to continue to move the county forward. There has to be somebody on the board that has a vision for the entire county. That's generally the chairwoman or the person that's sitting in that seat, because you have a vote at ARC. But a road in a district is not a countywide vision. That's that commissioner's district, and she should be allowed to make whatever decision she wants for the constituents in District 2. And that goes for everybody.
Well, I just hope that you heard my statement, and my statement was, if I was going to vote against it, I would have requested to table it, and to be out of respect for that district commissioner. I want and have the privilege as a role and as a chair and as a commissioner, just like everyone else on this board, to ask questions. Now, I have the duly respect of not reaching out to Commissioner Clemens because she's in a recovery state. So I did have a question. My privilege is here to ask the staff member what that question, to allow them the opportunity to respond. And again, my statement, and I will just say that based on his response, I am going to continue to respect District Commissioner Clemens. But I wanted my question answered, and I am going to vote in favor of this resolution. That is my position. Thank you. Commissioner Barham.
Yes, Rocky, just one question. I guess you had a conversation with Commissioner Clemens about this, and she's favorable to this.
I did, Commissioner. Actually, I had a different project, and when I mentioned it to her, she said, no, how about another project? And I mentioned this one, and I explained to her what I just explained to the chair, the reason of then why use this one, and she was okay with that. So yes, to answer your question, she knows about this resolution, and she knows about us reallocating or doing a budget amendment to include Estero 155. Yes, she knows.
Well, it's certainly, I support this.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
The resolution is passed. Thank you. We are now moving to our next item regarding a resolution regarding our airport, regarding an annual contract for the purchase of aviation fuel and the lease of aviation fuel trucks at the Henry County Airport. And we thank Ms. Lynn for making the presentation to us today.
Good morning, Chair Wood, Commissioners. Before you is a resolution awarding an annual contract for the purchase of aviation fuel and the lease of aviation fuel trucks. The purchasing department solicited sealed bids and followed all purchasing guidelines. 4 vendors responded, and the bid tabulation is attached. Eastern Aviation Fuels submitted the most responsive low bid, and personnel recommend award. And funds are available in the airport account for this commodity, and the materials will be ordered as needed. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, we've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? So 4 voted, 1 absent. The majority, the quorum was reached for the approval of the resolution. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're now moving to our next item and invite up Mr. David Smith regarding a Parks and Recreation resolution to approve a bid award to South Atlanta basketball officials to provide youth basketball referee services for the Henry County Parks and Recreation Department.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Vice Chair, board members, staff, and the Henry County members. What you have before you is a resolution approving a bid award to South Atlanta basketball officials. It's to provide youth basketball referee services for Henry County Parks and Rec. And I'm actually presenting this on behalf of my teammate who couldn't be here today, and that's Mr. Rod Gray. Staff is recommending approval. We went through all of the proper purchasing procedures, but only one person bid on this. And so I'm asking for, my recommendation is that we approve this.
Okay, well, we've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion. We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. It passes unanimously. All right, we're now moving to our discussion-only item, and this is inviting up Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisil and Mr. Ritza Naives. I'm sorry if I can mispronounce your last name. And this is regarding a planning and economic development item replacing the Fairview Road Overlay District with the Highway Corridor Overlay District. And so again, this is a discussion only, no action required by the board. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Wood.
Good morning.
The item before you this morning is regarding the fact that we have similar but non-uniform development standards for properties along Fairview Road. And so within our Unified Land Development Code, these non-uniform standards are codified in the Fairview Road Overlay District and the Highway Corridor Overlay District. So the proposed ordinance before you would accomplish two things. Number one, it would replace the Fairview Road Overlay District with the Highway Corridor Overlay District. And number two, it takes the opportunity to clarify and simplify the development standards within the Highway Corridor Overlay District itself. So we would like to bring this item before you for a vote on November the 19th. The amended ordinance itself is in your exhibit books. So if you'll notice, the items to be stricken are stricken and removed. The items to be added are illustrated with an underline, and then there are also comments that we've included as well. So for example, there may be definitions within the Highway Corridor Overlay District which are given but never mentioned again in the ordinance, and so those comments are made. Also, as part of the clarification process and the simplification process, we have grouped certain sections together, and so those comments are given in the highlighted parts as well. And so what I would like is for Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves to give us a little bit more information, and Yuritsa is a planner one within our department.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. So, as Stacy has said, our purpose is clarifying and simplifying the Highway Corridor Overlay District. That's the basis of the amendments we're proposing. So the Highway Corridor Overlay District is a fairly new overlay district, only adopted in March of 2017. And over the course of that time, staff has been able to work with applicants and potential applicants and see some of the strengths of the ordinance as well as some of its drawbacks and weaknesses. So we're requesting amendment to provide staff the ability to best serve applicants. So there are minor changes which have focused on cleaning up errors such as grammatical errors, spelling, punctuation, and other typographical errors. Removing, editing, and moving items within the ordinance itself, so moving sections around, as Stacy said, to improve the overall flow, not only for ourselves, but for potential applicants who are looking at the ordinance so that they can have a better understanding of the ordinance. The two major changes are integrating properties, parcels on Fairview Road into the boundaries of the Highway Corridor Overlay District and improving the vested rights section of the Highway Corridor Overlay District.
In the spirit of the discussion that we would like to have, I would just like to state that just this morning I received a comment by email that would request that under the allowable street trees that we actually remove the red leaf maple from the list of acceptable trees and to replace that with trident maples. And the reason for that are shallow root systems which may actually damage some of the curb and the pavement and so forth within the right-of-way. So we'd be very happy to answer your questions.
Okay, well, thank you. We've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to thank Commissioner Prince for his work on the Highway Corridor Overlay. And basically what we want to do is make the overlay consistent across the entire county. Fairview, we put that overlay in place before the highway overlay, and I just think just making it uniform makes everything flow a lot better in this county.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Well, thank you, and we appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
We look forward to the vote. Okay. We'll now move into our next agenda item from Public Safety and the Henry County Fire Department, and we invite up Chief Luther Phillips regarding a resolution approving the memorandum of understanding with the City of McDonough to assign a county ambulance to the City of McDonough Station 51. So good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Before you is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the City of McDonough to assign an ambulance to Station 51. The Henry County Fire Department is the sole 911 provider for Henry County. The territory that Station 51 covers currently does not have an ambulance assigned. The ambulances that run calls in that territory come from other stations that surround it, Station 7, 12, 1, 10. The area has a higher call volume. We have a call volume corridor, and that's right on the outside of it, but it does have a higher call volume than a lot of other areas. This memorandum involves moving one of our ambulances currently assigned at Station 1 over to Station 51. It should reduce response times in the area and sort of redistribute the call volume within that area. Now it will, by moving that one ambulance, draw stations from the west side of the county, Northampton at 15 and Llewellyn at 14, more over towards the central part of the county to run calls. But we will track that. We're an adaptive fire department, so we'll make the changes as needed, and we recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve this memorandum of understanding.
Okay, well, we've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Barr?
Yes, Mr. Phillips, this has been a long time coming. This has been something talked about for years. When McDonough add that addition to their fire department, they actually put a place for a fire ambulance. So it's been a long time, and I'm tickled to death that we're moving in that direction, and it's going to actually give us better coverage. I'm glad to hear that. So I totally support this. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? The resolution is unanimously approved. Thank you. All right, we'll now move into our financial update by Mr. David Smith, and we look forward to your update.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, board members. I'm back again in
Good
Henry
morning.
County community. Ready? What you have before you is an update for the month ended September 30th, 2018. A couple key points I wanted to mention. One is our expenditures continue to outpace our revenues at this point, but that's to be expected. A good point to mention is that if we compare ourselves year over year, we're doing about $2 million better than we were last year at this time, and it's primarily due to having vacancies in public safety. Next one. So here's a financial picture of where we stand. The numbers that I'm circling right now are really the 2.4 million down at the bottom where you see our expenditures exceeding our revenues. The good thing is that tax bills also went out this month, I think the beginning of this, and they're due November 15th, so we'll begin to see positive revenue increases. Next slide. This is a graphical representation of where we stand for the month of September against our budget. We should be at about 25%. We're approaching that. That's what this is showing right now, both for revenues and expenditures. So this month, we're doing a year-over-year comparison where you can see where public safety itself is doing a lot better in their expenditures, which I've already explained. The key point is vacancies. A graphical representation of us compared year over year. We're doing a lot better in expenditures. Next. What does that mean for fund balance? Right now, we're still expending our fund balance. We haven't audited. We're in the process of auditing. Our auditor's out here right now. We're in the process of auditing 6/30/2018. This is our anticipated year-end number, and this is where we anticipate to be at the end of September for the month. The next slides, couple slides you'll see are representative of SPLOST 4. Taking a look at where we stand on average, cumulative average, we're taking in about 2.4 million a month, which is about 200 to 300,000 more year over year. On the expenditure side, we're doing a lot better, where we're only taking in about 2.3, expending 2.3 of that 2.4 that we're taking in on average, and so there are some savings there. This is a graphical representation of our SPLOST 4 spending, where it shows that we're on pace for the revenue against the budget. Are there any questions that the board may have?
No, could you go back to, there's that first bar graph that showed revenue and expenditures. If you can go back a little bit further. Not that one, but there was one before that one. This one, could you explain this one? I was a little confused.
So this one is a comparison against the budget right now. My goal is to start presenting a graphical slide of how we compare, against, this is the annual budget, but it's to compare against a month-over-month budget.
Got it, okay.
So that's why I said we should be at about 25%, with a little lower on both revenue and expenditures there.
Great. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Yeah, could we get I would love to get a copy of this to study it more later, but this is good information, so thank you. Okay, no questions or comments from the board. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now moving to our public comment section. Do we have any public comments?
We have no public comments today.
Okay, we do not have any public comments, so at this time, we'll now move into our next item, which is the approval of the minutes for the October 16th, and since we do not have a quorum, we're going to have to just plan to approve those in our next meeting with the quorum. Okay, so at this time, are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Wilson.
Was we looking at having Sherry, was we looking at having a call meeting for the comp study?
No, sir, the comp study was actually going to be on the November 19th agenda, but it's my understanding that we need to discuss that as well, because I don't believe that we'll have a quorum. But at this point, we don't have a quorum, and so we can't discuss that either, because the board would need to take action on that. What I'll do is coordinate with the clerk and have her send something out to the board to confirm who will be in attendance on the November 19th meeting, and if we don't have a quorum, it will come with some alternate dates as well. And that will also include an email to schedule some 3-on-3s with the board regarding the employee clinic.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? I do, again, for our board members that are here, thank you as well. And those who are not here, are just looking forward. We had some major items that are on the agenda for the next discussion. The employee clinic, the classification and compensation study, and whatever else that we have planned for that day. So I really do hope that we'll be able to reach a quorum to discuss those major items. I do want to notify the board as well that in December, as required by law, I've got to attend a newly elected officials training that I couldn't take before. So I know that December 5th meeting, I will not be here, so I'm willing to do whatever I can to accommodate a quorum so that we can address the business of the county. All right. So at this time, are there any county manager comments?
Yes, ma'am, Chair Wood. I did want to make the board aware of the Veterans Day luncheon that we will be hosting here, or not here, but at Heritage on Monday, November the 12th at 11 a.m. We have more than 200 employees that are veterans, and this year we want to provide them with some type of luncheon just to show that we appreciate their service. And so if you all are available to attend, it will be held at Heritage on Monday at 11 a.m. And then my only other comment, and I'll turn it over to our county attorney, is to provide an update to the board regarding the Locust Grove annexation.
So good morning. As I indicated earlier, I do have a little update on the Locust Grove annexation at Davis Lake and Colvin Drive and Pine Grove Road. This is the annexation rezoning that the board objected to last month. We have received notice, and I know it went to the chair. It may have gone to the other board members. I'm not sure. We've received notice from the mayor of Locust Grove indicating that after they received our objection, that they have decided that they would accept, or they will vote on the annexation of the property, but instead of rezoning it to an industrial classification, they will zone it to a residential classification that will comply with our land use map. So that would eliminate our right to object. So as long as they act in that manner, the annexation will take place and we're done. And we've achieved the goal of our objection, which is to make them stop and think about the land use of the property they're annexing and to have an opportunity for this board to be heard.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, and I understand, County Attorney, we have no executive session today.
No.
Okay. So we'll then move into our next item, which is our upcoming meetings and events. Again, there was a noted November 19th date, but I understand that there were some challenges with schedules for that day. So, and our county clerk will work with the county manager to help us plan a new date or a special call meeting, and again to address some one-on-ones potentially or 3-on-3s for agenda items that are coming up. So we'll look forward to a public announcement regarding once that's been resolved. And then the next thing is on December the 4th, we'll have our 9:00 a.m. regular Board of Commissioners meeting as scheduled. Just as an FYI, our SPLOS 5 committee meetings are on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. There is one scheduled November the 15th at the City of McDonough at the City Hall in District 3. On November the 29th, there will be one scheduled at the City of Stockbridge at the Merrill Manders Center, and that's Districts 4 and 5. And then on December 13th at the Henry County Administration Building, there will be one here in Conference Room B. So considering those upcoming meetings, we'll now call for a motion to adjourn. Since we don't have, I'll so move and just act that we are adjourned, and just again, just wish everyone a really good election day today. Thank you. And happy Veterans